Just do the streaming. Send a notice out. Okay, we are online. Fantastic. Alrighty. Let's get the songbook out. Alright, here we go. Get the guitar. Sari hati hati itena yone hallelujah Quran namuli te hale hula kasari hati hati itena yone Coronai Bay, some side of Basana, coming to Chapway, Harakave, the Taichandera, Coronai Bay, some side of Basana, coming to Chapway. Should I be mana be a mali Sri Vrindavana Should I be mana be a mali Sri Hoy me aku ame amam chapose yukalamiti rupa hoy me aku ame amam chapose Raja Ratana Kone Sadama Nanuto Mutas Rahomo Rasha Ratana Kone Sari Hati hati, ite nayane, malumene. Go run above, ite nayane, ulaka sarigu. Hati hati, ite nayane, malumene. Ade ade, ite nayane, babede, orangone, ite nayane, ulakashare, ade ade, ite nayane, babede. Prabhupada, 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 Haribo, Haribo, Nichai Gaur, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhakacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Mathuradhan Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Manamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Dinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Deja Tarane. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let me read the translation to this poem written by Narottam Das Thakur. When will that opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of material anxieties and desires so that I can understand Vrindavana? When shall I be very eager to study the books by the 6 Goswamis so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis are my only shelter. In constant separation from them, I remain. Narottam Das. Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai. So Om Gana Timidandasha. Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we're continuing with our study of the Nectar of Instruction. It's very, very important. Nectar and Ba Deshamrita by Srila Rupa Goswami. So what we do is we chant this one verse from the Goswami Ashtaka before we begin. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakaraneu Tribhuvane Manyo Shutanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nantena Mataliko Mande Rupa Sanatano Raguyago Shri Jiva Gopala Ko. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizing the studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So, that's wonderful. So, let us continue with our study. So, we're going to share the screen. All right, where is that? Okay, we got it. So, we're in the middle of the purport to the third verse in the Upadeshamrita. And for those of you who are interested in the third verse of the Upadeshamrita, we're going to read it, or we're going to chant it again. Utsahan nischaya dharyat tatat karma bhavartanat sangal changat sangat chagat sato vrite sadbhir bhakti prasidyate. And so this verse lists the six principles that are favorable for devotional service, which are utsahan, being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, that's faith, or just being steady, dharyat. Being patient, that's a hard one. Acting according to regulative principles, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. That's hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Also, it means, that's right. Abandoning the association of devotees, Sangha Chagat. And finally, Sato Vritahe, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas and serving the previous acharyas. And these sadbhir bhakti prasidyati, these six different symptoms or principles, prasidyati, they actually enhance devotional service or ensure success in devotional service. So remember that. That's the verse we're reading. Now we are reading the purport. So now the next paragraph deals with Sato Vrite, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas or serving the previous acharyas. So in order to attain perfection in bhakti yoga, one has to perform devotional service. Actually, let me just change this window a little bit so I can see the chat in case someone asks something. Not that we want you to ask something in the middle of the reading, but sometimes there's a problem. One has to perform devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master in all phases of life. It is not that one has to confine or narrow one's activities. Krishna is all-pervading. Therefore, nothing is independent of Krishna, as Krishna himself states, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtinam atstani sarvabhutani naham teshvavastitaha. And of course, that's Bhagavad Gita 9.4. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I'm not in them. Under the direction of the spiritual master, one has to make everything favorable for Krishna service. For example, at present, we are using a dictaphone. If you don't know what a dictaphone is, that is a tape recorder that's used for dictation. And in the old days, Prabhupada had a dictaphone with like a circular belt on it. Whoops, let me take my glasses off. The materialist who invented this machine intended it for businessmen or writers of mundane subject matters. He certainly never thought of using the dictaphone in God's service, but we are using this dictaphone to write Krishna-conscious literature. Of course, the manufacture of the dictaphone is wholly within the energy of Krishna. All the parts of the instrument, including the electronic functions, are made from different combinations and interactions of the 5 basic types of material energy, namely Bhumi, Jala, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. And that means earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And if you don't know what ether is, ether basically means space. It's not something that you breathe that puts you out. So earth means solid, Jala means liquid, Agni means fiery, Vayu means air. You go from gross to subtle, or more subtle. And Akash means just the space. Space. That's it, space. The inventor used his brain to make this complicated machine, and his brain as well as the ingredients was supplied by Krishna. According to the statement of Krishna, Matstani Sarvabhutani, Gita 9:4, everything is dependent on my energy. Thus the devotee can understand that since nothing is independent of Krishna's energy, everything should be dovetailed in his service. So in other words, practically speaking, everything can be used in Krishna's service. That is called Yukta Vairagya, the renunciation of using something in Krishna's service rather than giving it up, because if you give it up, that is Falgu Vairagya, which means basically false renunciation, saying that here is something I could use for Krishna, and I'm not going to do it. It's false renunciation, because Krishna wants you to do it. So the spiritual master engages the disciple according to their nature, what we call psychophysical nature. That means everyone has a body, everyone has psychology, and there's a specific engagement according to Varnashram that is most fit or best fit for your particular psychology and body. Some people are Brahmins, some people are Kshatriyas, some people are Vaishyas, and some people are Shudras. So everybody has to be engaged accordingly. Endeavor, so, Brahman, of course, engages in presenting Krishna consciousness, doing sacrifice, learning, studying, everything like that. Kshatriya engages in administration, sometimes a little bit of fighting there to protect others. That's what the word Kshatriya. Shat means harm. Triya means to free one. Just like the word mantra. The word mantra is composed of 2 words, mana and tra. Tra means to free you from the mana, or the mind. So that Kshatriya, Vaishya should be engaged in commerce, or in cattle protection, or in some sort of agriculture, and the Shudra, he has to work under the direction of others, because he's generally not self-motivated, so needs someone just like to be over him, basically. Or the threat of a salary, that if you don't work, no money. So the spiritual master sees, what is this disciple's nature? And keeping him busy, because if the disciple is not busy, idle mind is a devil's workshop. That means as soon as there is extra time, then immediately Maya can seep in. Like Prabhupada said, if you have a full glass, and Prabhupada gave the example, no ink can enter. So you have to keep yourself fully engaged in Krishna's service. And then there's no time for illusion. And that's full engagement according to your nature. Like if you take a Shudra and try to engage him fully in studying, it's not going to work. Even though he may have the ability to memorize things, it's not going to work, because he's not going to be able to keep concentrated on it or be enthusiastic. So that's what utsahan, which we're going to talk about in this next paragraph. Utsahan means that one should be enthusiastic. So this one not only has to be enthusiastic because he's serving Krishna, but one has to be enthusiastic because he's serving Krishna according to his nature. Like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, or Arjuna in the battlefield, Kurukshetra, wanted to do something that wasn't his nature. He wanted to do what? He wanted to renounce Brahman type of stuff. So because it wasn't his nature, he wouldn't have been able to stick to it. He wouldn't have had that enthusiasm. determination, confidence, or patience, he wouldn't have had it. It wouldn't have worked. But if you tell him to fight, to protect others, for the whole Mahabharata war, he was super enthusiastic. So this is a very, very important point. To be enthusiastic, one has to be engaged according to their, what we call this psychophysical nature. Otherwise, even if it's Krishna service, of course, if one's an absolutely pure devotee of the Lord, then one can do anything, even if it's not one's psychophysical nature. One could do anything and always be enthusiastic, always be determined, always be confident, always be patient. But very few of us are absolutely pure devotees, willing just to do anything and everything for the service of Krishna. So therefore, there's engagement according to psychophysical nature. And even Arjuna was a pure devotee, had to be engaged according to his psychophysical nature. So that's an important aspect of utsaha. The devotees find correct means by which everything can be utilized in the service of the Lord. Nirvana Krishna Sambandha Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. The execution of devotional service is not a matter of idle meditation, but is practical action on the foreground of spiritual life. In other words, devotional service means to be active, doing what Krishna wants. Remember, we talked about that in the beginning. And also doing it with a mood of trying to please Krishna. These activities must be executed with patience. One should not be impatient and Krishna conscious, because if you're not patient, you'll be passionate. Indeed, this Krishna conscious movement was started single-handedly. In the beginning, there was no response. But because we continued to execute our devotional activities with patience, people gradually began to understand the importance of this movement, and now they are eagerly participating. One should not be impatient in discharging devotional service, but should take instructions from the spiritual master and execute them with patience, depending on the mercy of Guru and Krishna. The successful execution of Krishna conscious activities requires both patience and confidence. A newly married girl naturally expects offspring from her husband, but she cannot expect to have them immediately after marriage. Of course, as soon as she's married, she can attempt to get a child, but she must surrender to her husband, confident that her child will develop and be born in due time. Similarly, in devotional service, surrender means that one has to become confident. The devotee thinks, Avasya Rakshive Krishna. Krishna will surely protect me and give me help for the successful execution of devotional service. This is called confidence. That's really important, which is faith. Faith that it will happen, even though it's hard to understand how it will happen, because we are so much engrossed in Krishna's material energy with so many anarthas. Prabhupada sometimes explained that it's like cleaning the heart. Sometimes it seems like we're cleaning a piece of coal. Like you put some coal in the sink and you put some scrub, and your hands just get dirty. You're not going to get clean. As already explained, one should not be idle, but should be very enthusiastic about executing the regulative principles, tatat karma pavartana. Neglect of the regulative principles will destroy devotional service. In this Krishna conscious movement, there are 4 basic regulative principles: forbidding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. A devotee must be very enthusiastic about following these principles. If he becomes slack in any of them, his progress will certainly be checked. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends tatat karma pavartanat. One must strictly follow the regulated principles of Vaidhi Bhakti. In addition to these 4 prohibitions, yama, there are positive regulated principles. We talked about the principles of yama and niyama. Yama means prohibitions of what not to do. Niyama, what means what to do, such as the daily chanting of 16 rounds in japa mala beads. These regulative activities must be faithfully performed with enthusiasm. This is called tatat karma pavartana, or varied engagement in devotional service. Furthermore, in order to be successful in devotional service, one must give up the association of undesirable people. That's Baya association. Sangos Chagat. This includes karmis, jnanis, yogis. Karmis means people enthusiastic about material upliftment. Jnanis means people who just want to merge into the absolute truth. And yogis means those who want some yogic power or popularity by performance of the Ashtanga yoga system, and other non-devotees. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked by one of his householder devotees about the general principles of Vaishnavism, as well as the general routine activities of a Vaishnava, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asatsanga Tyaga, a Vaishnava Achara, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 2287. So asat means temporary or material, Sangha means association, Tyaga means renunciation, a Vaishnava, the Vaishnavas, achara. Achara means behavior. So Prabhupada translates it here as characteristically, a Vaishnava is one who gives up the association of worldly people or non-devotees. Srila Narottam Das Thakur is therefore recommended Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Salivas. One has to serve the devotees. One has to live in the company of pure devotees and execute the regulated principles laid down by the previous acharyas. The six Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. If one lives in the association of devotees, there is little chance of associating with non-devotees. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees and practice the regulated principles of spiritual life. Devotional service means transcendental activities. On the transcendental platform, there is no contamination by the three modes of material nature. This is called Vishuddha Sattva. That means spiritual goodness. The platform of pure goodness, or goodness free from the contamination by the qualities of passion and ignorance. So in this Krishna conscious movement, we require everyone to rise early in the morning by 4 o'clock and attend Mangalarti or morning worship, then read Srimad Bhagavatam, perform kirtan, and so forth. Thus we hold continuous activities in devotional service 24 hours daily. This is called Sato Vrite, or following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas who expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna conscious activities. So this morning program is extremely important. Now for those who live in household life, it may not be possible to wake up by 4 in the morning. You can wake up a little later. But to have some sort of morning program before you go to work or before you proceed on your daily activities, because this really fixes your consciousness, especially when it's done during the time of what we call the Brahma Muhurta. Muhurta means a certain period of time of Lord Brahma, or not necessarily Lord Brahma, spiritual Muhurta. And activities done during that time, these spiritual activities are a lot easier to perform. I mean, for example, most mornings I'm up before 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm chanting, and I get most of my rounds done before Mangalarti, which is really nice. It's just very enlivening and helps me focus on my service during the day and also on the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one strictly follows the advice given in this verse by Srila Rupa Goswami, namely being enthusiastic, being confident, being patient, giving up the association of unwanted persons, following the regular principles, and remaining in the association of devotees, one is sure to advance in devotional service. In this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that the cultivation of knowledge by philosophical speculation, the collection of mundane opulence by the advancement of fruitive activities, and the desire for yoga siddhis, in other words, that's pretty easy to understand. Yoga siddhis means power. Material perfections are all contrary to the principles of devotional service. One has to become thoroughly callous to such non-permanent activities and turn his intention, instead to the regulated principles of devotional service, according to the Bhagavad Gita. Interesting verse 269. Yanisha Sava Bhutanam Tasham Jagarati Samyame Yashyam Jagarti Bhutani Yanisha Pashato Munahe. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. In other words, this doesn't need to be taken literally. In other words, the life of a devotee considers what the non-devotees or what the materialists are doing is like darkness, night. And what the materialists think is that what the materialists think is that when the devotees are doing is actually night, or not so significant. So let me explain. What is night for all beings, that means most materialistically inclined beings, is the time of awakening for self-control. Also can be understood to be during the Brahma Muhurta hour. So in the time of awakening for all beings, that means for those who are interested in Krishna consciousness, and the time of awakening for all beings, that is the normal beings, is night, is considered night, in other words, darkness, by the introspective sage, or introspective sage means devotee. Engagement in the devotional service of the Lord is the life and soul of the living entity. It is the desired goal and supreme perfection of human life. One has to become confident about this, and one also has to be confident that all activities other than devotional service, such as mental speculation, fruitive work, or mystic endeavor, will never yield any enduring benefit. Complete confidence in the path of devotional service will enable one to attain his desired goal, but attempting to follow other paths will only succeed in making one restless. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, one must be calmly convinced that those who have given up devotional service to engage in severe austerities for other purposes are not purified in their minds despite their advanced austerities, because they have no information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In other words, it's a waste of time. Shrama eva hi kevalam. It is further stated in the 10th canto, although mental speculators and fruitive actors may perform great austerities and penances, they still fall down because they do not have information about the lotus feet of the Lord. In other words, there's no higher taste or higher pleasure. We are pleasure-seeking entities. We want happiness. We want pleasure. We want peace. Right? Tushanti cha ramanti cha. Macha magata pranas. Bodhyantas cha parasparam katyantas chamam nichan. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. Machata magata prana. The devotees are always chanting about Krishna, glorifying Krishna. Bodhyantas cha parasparam, exchanging. Katyantas chamam nicham. Krishna kata. Tushanti cha. Tushanti means they're peaceful, satisfied. Ramanti, that means they are enjoying. In Bhagavad Gita 9:31, the Supreme Personality of God assures Arjuna Kunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Panashati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Again in the Bhagavad Gita, that's reassuring. 2:40, Krishna says, Naha Vikrama Nashosti Pratyavayo Navijate Swapamapyasha Dharmasha Trayade Mahato Vayat. That's also encouraging. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Prabhupada, when commenting on this verse, says the most dangerous type of fear is losing your human form of life in its life. And so, in other words, if one makes a little advancement in this life, then you keep that advancement, or you make a lot of advancement, you keep that advancement, you start from that point in the next life. It's a really important point. So we don't have to, there's no loss or diminution. That is very, very important. Diminution means basically diminishing, becoming less. Devotional service is so pure and perfect that once one has begun it, one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. It's a fact. You're forcibly dragged. Sometimes a person will give up his ordinary material engagements and out of sentiment take shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and thus begin the preliminary execution of devotional service. Even if such an immature devotee falls down, there is no loss on his part. On the other hand, what is the gain of one who executes the prescribed duties according to his varna and ashram, but does not take to devotional service? It's all temporary. Just like we said, there's no loss or diminution, but in temporary activities, materialistic activities, there's complete loss and complete diminution. Complete. Zero. Zilch. Ashes to ashes. Dust to dust. In other words, you can't take it with you. You can take your advancement, devotional advancement with you, but you can't take anything else with you. That's it. You cannot take any. Well, you take your karma with you, but basically any of your material goods, whatever, you can't take with you. But you can take your devotional service. So even if you act properly in this world without taking a devotional service, it's all Shramaya Vikevam. It's a waste of time. Although a fallen devotee may take his next birth in a low family, his devotional service will nonetheless resume from where it left off. Devotional service is a haituki pratyata. It is not the effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause or permanently curtailed by any material interruption. Therefore, devotees should be confident about his engagement and should not be very interested in the activities of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis. He shouldn't waste his time in fruitless activities or frivolous activities. Like sometimes I've seen devotees, play video games and things like that. It's all just a waste of time. You have to be very, very careful, because with every rising and setting of the sun, a day losses and you can't get it back. There are certainly many good qualities among fruitive actors, philosophical speculators, and mystic yogis, but all good qualities automatically develop in the character of a devotee. No extraneous endeavor is needed. As confirmed by Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12, all the good qualities of the demigods progressively become manifest in one who has developed pure devotional service. Because a devotee is not interested in any material activity, he does not become materially contaminated. He is immediately situated on the platform of transcendental life. However, one who engages in mundane activity, be he a so-called jnani, one who wants liberation, yogi, one who wants power, or karmi, one who wants material goods, philanthropist, one thinks he can help others materially, not considering that they have karma, nationalist, one who thinks his country is the best and just works for his countrymen, or whatever, cannot attain the higher stage of Mahatma. He remains a Duratma. Duratma means bad soul or cripple-minded person. According to Bhagavad Gita, and here's this famous verse about Mahatmas, Mahatmanastu mam partha daivam prakritim ashata bhajanjananya manasho gyatva muthavyam avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and exhaustible. This is the definition of a Mahatma. Okay? Mahatmanas, Tumam, O son of Pritha, the Mahatmas, Daivim Prakritim, they have taken shelter of the divine nature. Well, this is protection of the divine nature. Why is that? Because they're ananya. They have no other activity other than worshipping Krishna and thinking of Krishna. Bhajanjananya means that's it. They're always doing bhajan. Bhajan, of course, means serving Krishna with bhakti or love. And their mind, the mind, body, and words, manaso. And they know Krishna, gyatva, bhutadam avyayam, that Krishna is the original, and he's everything, and he's avyayam, inexhaustible. Since all the devotees of the Lord are under the protection of his supreme potency, they should not deviate from the path of devotional service and take to the path of karmi, jnani, or yogi. Karmi, of course, means one who wants material things. Jnani means one who wants liberation, or yogi means one who wants some powers. And so this is called Utsahan Nishya Darya Tatat Karma Bhavartanat. Enthusiastically executing the regulated principles of devotional service with patience and confidence. In this way, one can advance in devotional service without hindrance. And so we finished the chapter. So today we did the second part of the third, not exactly chapter, but the third verse in the Upadeshamrita. So we finished it, and should we start the fourth verse? I guess so. Now remember, the first two verses were like basically negative types of injunctions. The first verse dealt with one who can control Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Diwa Vegam, Udo Pashta Vegam. He controlled the tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, and words. He is capable of making disciples. In other words, devotees should endeavor to control these things instead of being controlled by those things. And the second verse was Achahara Prayasa Chabajalpa Niyamagraha Jana Sangashaloyam Cha Sabir Vanashyati. Also negative injunctions. Devotional service is spoiled by collecting too much, Achara, over-endeavoring, Pajalpa, mundane talks, Niyamagraha or Nimagraha. Nimagraha means basically following the rules and regulations without a spiritual intention. Nimagraha means neglecting the rules and regulations. Pajalpa, Nimagraha. Janasangas, taking association with ordinary materialistic peoples, jnanis, karmis, or yogis. So, Janasangas shalolyam cha. And the last one, lolyam, is hankering for mundane things. So these spoil the devotional service. And so the third verse is more positive. Utsahanasya darya tatat karma bhavartanat. So enthusiasm, patience, determination are positive injunctions. And I related these to the first two principles of yoga, yam and niyam. Yam means the things that need to be given up, and niyam means the things that need to be done. So in other words, the first two verses of the Upadeshamrita are the yam or restrictions, and the next two verses are positive things. And so this next verse is actually extremely positive, dealing with what? Loving exchanges. Everyone likes loving exchanges. Loving exchanges between devotees, not mundane love. So, let's read text 4. We'll start text 4, and we'll get a little bit through it, and then we'll take questions. Dadati pratigranati Guyamakyati pritchati Punkte bhazyate chaiva Sadvinam priti lakshanam. So Dadati gives charity, pratigranati accepts in return Guyam confidential topics, Akyati explains, pritchati inquires, Punkte eats, bhazyate feeds, cha also, eva certainly, Sadvidam 6 kinds, priti of love, lakshanam, the symptoms. Offering gifts in charity. This is between devotees, actually. Loving exchanges. Love and trust, as Srila Prabhupada said. Offering gifts in charity. Of course, they should be Krishna conscious gifts. I mean, you don't want to offer some gifts like, what would be a non-great? I'm not going to meet. Yeah, like a bottle of liquor or something like that. Offering gifts is actually like something Krishna conscious, something Krishna conscious like a Dudodi, Dusari, Tilak, or something that helps. Accepting charitable gifts, the exchanges like that, Tadati Pratigurnati. Then Guyam Akyati Prichati, secret, when revealing one's mind and confidence, or inquiring from others confidentially. Guyam Akyati Prichati, Bhunkte Bhosyate Chaiva, accepting prasadam and offering prasadam. between the devotees. And these are 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Very, very important principles. Prabhupada at one point said, our Krishna conscious movement moves forward. People are attracted by these 6 devotional exchanges. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami explains how to perform devotional activities in the association of other devotees. There are 6 kinds of activities. 1, giving charity to the devotees. 2, accepting from the devotees whatever they offer in return. 3, opening one's mind to the devotees. 4, inquiring from them about the confidential service of the Lord. 5, honoring prasadam or spiritual food given by the devotees. And 6, feeding the devotees with prasad. An experienced devotee explains, and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. This is Guyam Akyati Prichati. When a devotee distributes prasad, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasad as the Lord's grace, received through the pure devotees. We should also invite pure devotees to our home, offer them prasad, and be prepared to please them in all respects. This is called Bhukte Bhojyate Chaiva. Also, giving prasadam, accepting prasadam. Very, very important. Our Prabhupada said our movement is kitchen religion. We move forward based upon distributing prasadam and taking prasadam with the devotees. Even in ordinary social activities, these 6 types of dealings between 2 loving friends are absolutely necessary. For instance, when one businessman wishes to contact another businessman, he arranges a feast in a hotel. And over the feast, he openly expresses what he wishes to do. He then inquires from his business friend how he should act, and sometimes presents are exchanged. Thus, whenever there is a dealing of priti or love and intimate dealings, these 6 activities are executed. In the previous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advised that one should renounce worldly association and keep company with the devotees. Sangat Tyagat Sato Vrite. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. This society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give-and-take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. We are glad that people are donating very liberally to the development of the society's activities, and people are also eagerly accepting whatever humble contribution we are giving them in the shape of books and magazines, dealing strictly with the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. We sometimes hold Hare Krishna festivals and invite life members and friends to participate in the feasting by accepting prasada. Although most of our members come from the higher rungs of society, they nonetheless come and take whatever little prasad we are able to offer them. Sometimes the members and supporters inquire very confidentially about the methods of performing devotional service, and we try to explain this. In this way, our society is successfully spreading all over the world, and the intelligentsia of all countries is gradually appreciating our Krishna conscious activities. The life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchanges among the members. Therefore, people must be given a chance to associate with the devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's interesting, simply by participating in these 6 kinds of loving exchanges, you can revive your Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita 262, it is stated, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. One's desires and ambitions develop according to the company one keeps, Sangha. It is often said that a man is known by his company, and if an ordinary man associates with devotees, he will certainly develop his dormant Krishna consciousness. The understanding of Krishna consciousness is innate in every living entity, and it is already developed to some extent when the living entity takes a human body. It is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22:107. Okay. So, that 4 verse, and we went up to this. Madhya Lila 2:107. Okay. So, we can take some questions now. Let's stop sharing, and then we will unmute or allow you all to unmute yourselves if you want to ask a question. Okay, so you can raise your hand, type in the text window or chat window, whatever you're call it, or unmute yourself according to the question you want to ask, according to the point you want to make. Who has a question and who has a point? Raise your hand or unmute yourself. Oh, nobody. There was one devotee said, that's my favorite sentence in all of Srila Prabhupada's books. That means taking prasadam. That's natural. Taking prasadam. And prasadam attracted so many people to the Krishna consciousness movement. That's why Prabhupada emphasized that. In the beginning, Prabhupada was doing all the cooking and distributing and making all the rotis and the chapatis for everybody. And Prabhupada was just like serving everybody. Amazing. And Prabhupada trained people up how to cook Krishna in Krishna consciousness. So Gora Hari, you have a question.
Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Yes, my question is nothing to do with the subject matter you discussed today, but it's more like regarding Lord Jagannath when he travels from Puri to
Kundicha.
wherever he goes. I don't know. Would you please tell me about it? Because I don't know the details, how the trajectory, how far he travels,
Well, Lord
and
Jagannath travels
and
from
the,
the
and where
temple
we
in
go.
travels from the temple in Puri to the Gundicha temple. The Gundicha temple represents Vrindavan, and that's the whole story of the Rath Yatra. That Lord Jagannath, after the Snana Yatra and the 14 days where he's apparently sick, he goes on his Rath Yatra, and that Rath Yatra is to Vrindavan. Because he's being dragged to Vrindavan, which is symbolized by the Gundicha temple, by the residents of Vrindavan. And so that's Rath Yatra.
And how far does he travel?
That's Rath Yatra. So, does that answer your question?
And how far? How far does he travel from
It's a few miles. It's a few
Puri
miles.
to the Gandhika?
Very
Huh?
short. Very short. A few miles.
What, a kilometer?
I don't know. I don't know the exact distance, but it's not
Oh, okay. I see. I'll try to find it because I
more than,
looked it up in
more than a kilometer.
online, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, you can just look up on the internet the distance between. I'll just look it up now. Distance between Puri and Gundicha. Gundicha. A distance of 3 kilometers.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
3 kilometers. Those sorts of things you can look up on the internet. 3 kilometers. Okay, for those of you who don't know that. And so, thank you for your question. So, next question is Sumuk. You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Haribol.
Regarding today's topic, revealing confidential. So what kind of things we can reveal confidential to devotees? And what is the purpose behind this?
Confidential means one's own challenges in devotional service. Let's say let's give an example of, let's say you have a challenge that you're watching TV too much.
I do.
Yeah, you do. All right, but that's not so confidential. Because now everybody in the 3 worlds knows about it. So, confidential would mean that you have some challenge. You're addicted to TV, or addicted to the Bollywood movies, or you're addicted to eating too many sweets. And you come to me and you say, Guru Maharaj, I have this challenge, this problem, that I want to deal with. So Guru Maharaj, if that happens to be me, which it is, will give you advice on how to deal with that. Overeating, oversleeping, whatever challenges you have. And I'm not going to go on the internet and broadcast it. That way it's confidential. I'm not going to say that Sumuk has this problem. He eats too many sweets. So, and I put it on Facebook and all the social networking sites and TikTok. I do a little video on TikTok about it, and then it's no longer confidential. So that's a problem we find with many devotees, is that we go and we may reveal our minds, and then we find out that everybody knows about it. And so, guyam akyati prichati means any confidential, trusting relationships, that we don't broadcast someone's problem. Like one time there was a sannyasi who left the sannyas order of life when Prabhupada was present on the planet. And there was another devotee who just broadcasted everywhere. And Prabhupada was more angry with the devotee who broadcasted it, because he said, you're making it difficult for him to come back. So if someone struggles and has some little issue, I mean, we're not talking about a big issue, like if someone is a murderer or some bank robber or something like that. Some little issue, like watches too much TV or surfs the internet for 15 hours a day, trying to figure out, anyway, whatever, or looks at all the girls and thinks how pretty they are, which is kind of nonsense anyway, because it's all stool bodies. Anyway, so bags of bile, mucus, urine, stool. So anyway, so it's confidential. That's the main thing. You reveal your mind in confidence, and you give confidential advice. That's it. Okay?
Yes.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, Gurudev.
Yeah, no more internet broadcasting of anything like that. Okay, that's a very good question, Sumuk.
Thank you.
And anybody else have a question? We got 2 minutes. Anybody else have a question? Okay. I guess if you don't know enough. Oh, yeah, here's a question in the chat window. How is it that anybody in the human form of life has developed some Krishna consciousness? How is it that anybody in the human form of life has developed some Krishna consciousness? By the mercy of Krishna's devotee. And you're accepting the mercy. The mercy is equally given to everybody, but you have to accept it. It's like the rain. Rain falls everywhere. Yeah.
What I was referring to was that there was a part in at the very end of the reading that said that anyone that is in the form of a human life has developed some sort of Krishna consciousness.
Well, there's awareness. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is just awareness. Let me just look at that at the end of the reading. Hold on a second, Dito. In the understanding, yeah, here it is. The understanding of Krishna consciousness is innate in every living entity. And it is already developed to some extent when the living entity takes a human body. In other words, there's some awareness indirectly of Krishna consciousness. That one, for example, some awareness that one doesn't want to die, that one wants to be happy. So there's some introspection there when one takes a human body. So it's innate, already developed. Maybe it's 1/1000th of a percent when the living entity takes the human body. That's what you were referring to, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And it's developed because one's consciousness at least is coming up out of complete ignorance, at least when one's not drunk. So, on that happy note, we're going to end the class, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Hopefully, just pray. See everybody tomorrow, same time, same station. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.